everybody. We have another game in our speed run. We have the white pieces against Ayush Sharma, rated 911. And what do you know? We have another Scandinavian. So in the Scandi, we always take. It brings the queen out. It lets us develop a minor piece for free. Can't argue with that. He goes back home. Now we get a whole nother free move. Can't argue with that. We're going to go d4, stake our claim in the center, open up our bishop's diagonal. And now we just got a free move. We like free moves. Black decides to develop his knight towards the center. Makes sense. We're also going to develop our king's knight towards the center. Makes sense. We're just following center and development. We're going to eventually get to king safety once our bishop is gone. So black decides to develop his knight looking at the center. That's fine. He doesn't have any pawns in the center, so we always have to consider pawn pushes. Does it do anything? Well, he can't really take if he moves his knight. I'm not sure that we want to do it so early. I don't see, we might be overextending our pawn. Maybe let's just keep developing. So I'm going to go bishop c4. I'm going to bring my light square bishop out to a nice diagonal, hitting the center and preparing castling. Black's going to go e6, controlling the center, blunting the bishop, preparing his dark square bishop, but it also blocks in his light square. Usually in the Scandinavian, they want to get this bishop outside of their pawn chain first. So this is definitely good for me. It's a much more passive for him. So we're just going to continue with normal stuff like castling. King safety, done. Knight's out, done. Pawn in the center, done. So now we can just play a regular game. Bishop develops, pressures the knight, which in turn controls the center. So he's pressuring the center. Fine. I'm going to keep developing. So we have one minor piece left. We have a couple of squares. And I'm going to try to pick maybe one that pins the knight, because his knight controls the center. So the way he's doing it to me, I'm doing it to him, only his is not a pin, mine is a pin. He takes. I'm happy to see this. These doubled pawns I don't mind at all, because A, they support and protect the center. B, I got a bishop for it, and I'd much rather have his bishop than my knight, than my queen's knight. And C, now my rook has a beautiful active post. So he goes and kicks my bishop. I'm not going to make the same mistake in trade. Instead, I'm just going to retreat one square and maintain the pin. If in fact he breaks the pin, we're forced to go here. It's a beautiful square. What? And now black just pawn storms me for no reason. This can never work. One, you're not castled. You're not fully developed. You don't have good control over the center. You're hanging pawns behind it, and even if I let you push, my bishop isn't trapped, right? However, this pawn hangs, so we can definitely take that pawn. My opponent proposes a take back, I let him do it. So I guess he just realized that the pawn is hanging, so so instead he pushes this pawn first so as not to lose that pawn. But now my bishop is free on the dark squares again, so what was the whole point of this? So now our knight has to move, but we get to move it into the center. He's forcing us to improve our piece, and all he did was make giant weaknesses in his position, because this dark square bishop just got a whole lot stronger. Also, this pawn is a target. He's not castled, and now he's proceeding, trying to trap my bishop. Of course, this is never going to work. So Not because my bishop is in danger of being trapped, but because he pushed this pawn, he made this diagonal so much weaker, so I want to go back to this strong diagonal. It happens to stop his pawn advance because it's a blockade, so that's a super nice benefit, but I'm primarily putting it here because I really like this diagonal. This knight is indefensible by pawns. That means its other pieces are always going to be tied down to defending it. So it's always inconvenient and uncomfortable for black. So black decides at the exact wrong time to take my knight. He takes my knight now, and there's no reason to trade pieces unless you have a good reason, some type of verbal way to explain it. So he takes this. We're forced to take back one of his knights. If we take back this knight, and he does a random move, he loses the game. Well, to pawn takes knight, let's just say. But if I take the knight, he's going to take my queen. And when I take his queen, his knight's not pinned, he can move it. That's still terrible for him on the dark squares, but do we have something else? So we're down a knight. If we take this knight, he's going to take our bishop. Then we take this knight, hitting the queen. If he takes our pawn, how's that any different? I guess we'll just go the normal route. There's no reason. I mean, I don't want to trade queens, but whatever. I also don't want to give him my bishop. So I'd rather trade queens and keep the bishop with all these weaknesses. Okay, so which rook do we want to take with? Well, let's assume he's going to go here next. Does that change anything? I guess the B file is not really going to be a thing, so let's take with this rook. And we'll play on the D and E files. Because all he has to do is go B here and develop his bishop anyway, which is what he wants to do because his bishop can't go this way. So he moves his knight, like I figured, to attack the doubled pawns. But now he's wasting lots of time moving his knight, coming into our territory. And the main drawback with this move is basically it gives amazing scope to our bishop, which happens to coordinate with the rook, which happens to be a checkmate. So 16 moves, he got mated. If we go over the game, we see center and development. In the Scandi, you have to take, it's a forced move, or you can push basically, but we take. And now development and center, center and development, development and center. Now development and center. Now king safety. You see? So 7 moves in, the principles. I'm not saying 30 moves, your whole 30 move game or 40 move game is going to be center development, but no, the opening, the first, 7 to 10 moves should definitely be this. If it's not in your games, change that. Simple fix, you can do it. And now development, and it affects the center. Forced move. Already computer says +1, plus 0.8. Regardless of, I mean, you're obviously not winning, but it's still, you'd rather be white here with the bishop pair, the nice pawn in the center, the castle's king. When you just make simple observations like that, you can kind of get a sense for who's preferable. Forced move. Forced move. So what's the option? So takes. Okay, interesting. Alright, so anyway, we're plus 2.5. And now it's move 12. So we already have our center. We already are well developed. So you kind of transition more into middle game ideas. you know, concrete stuff that you see on the board, concrete lines, things that work. Of course, you're up +4, so everything works, but I take this diagonal back. And he actually does have this interesting resource which you played in the game, which allows the queen trade, which I wasn't planning on, but it's still not good for him. Yeah, so here he either has to give up the pawn or go to like the ugliest square ever to avoid checkmate. In either way, you definitely don't want to be black. Like, even if you go back so you don't lose material or checkmate, what is this position? You still can't move your knight to move your bishop because it's still checkmate. This rook, like, what is this position, right? So it's pretty obvious that white's a lot better. For any of you who are wondering about this here, as soon as he moves here, if your instinct is queen d3 defends, bishop d2 defends, move the knight or whatever, just know that this bishop trade is not scary or bad for white. Once he takes this, your b pawn goes to c3, and it's better on c3 because it protects d4. Also, it gives your bishop a nice avenue, your rook, and you get the bishop pair, and bishops are strong. On its home square, look at everything it touches. If the b pawn moves, it touches 2 more squares even. So a knight, not so much. And a lot of the squares a knight touches, a lot of them are backwards in your own camp. You could say that about the bishop only if it's forward. If the bishop's home, it really touches lots of forward squares as well as your own. Either way, bishops are strong. Don't give them up for knights for no reason. I will see you in the next video.